Of the mayor and council. I would like Peter Vanstrom to come forward and lead us in the pledge. Peter, you're up.
I gotta remember it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Becky Wynn. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions about the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. It looks like we have some ham radio operators out in the room, and it is my privilege to recognize them and read a proclamation regarding Amateur Radio Week here in the city of Roswell. Whereas amateur radio operators are celebrating over a century of human voice broadcasting over the airwaves, and amateur radio continues to provide a bridge among societies and countries, creating friendship and sharing ideas. And whereas the North Fulton Amateur Radio League members have provided countless hours of uncompensated community service by providing a backup communication services to the city of Roswell, police and fire departments, communications to local charitable events, and other organizations throughout the region. And whereas the city of Roswell recognizes and appreciates the diligence of these hams who serve as weather spotters in the Skywarn program of the National Weather Service and provide relevance in our highly modern technical world by providing emergency communications when other systems may fail. And whereas the North Fulton Amateur Radio League will participate in a yearly national event sponsored by the ARRL called Field Day as an emergency preparedness exercise that will take place on June 27th and June 28th. It's an all-night event. This event will demonstrate amateur radio skills and readiness to provide self-supporting communications without further infrastructure being required. And whereas the North Fulton Amateur Radio League will hold their annual Field Day event in the city of Roswell at Waller Park Extension, and all citizens of Roswell are encouraged to attend, now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the city of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the week of June 22nd through 28th, 2009 as Amateur Radio Week in the city of Roswell, Georgia, and urge all of our citizens to recognize the importance of this event and the significance of amateur radio to our citizens in our community. And gentlemen, do you have a spokesman or someone who can radio in and tell us more about this event and what you all are doing in the city of Roswell? Now, first, if you could tell the council, who have you spoken with this week?
This week, nobody.
Nobody,
sir.
You weren't on the radio this week.
No, sir.
Now,
not me.
How far away are you able to reach with your radio? What's your furthest distant contact?
Me personally, I've reached New Zealand.
New Zealand.
There are people. We have members of our club that are here that have spoken with people on every continent, just about every country in the world. We have operators locally that do this on a regular basis.
Do you brag about Roswell every time?
Try to.
That's good. Keep it up.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Ian Kahn. I'm the 2009 Field Day Chairman for the North Fulton Amateur Radio League. The first thing I want to do is thank the city, thank the mayor, thank the City Council for your continued support of our organization and for allowing us to use the Waller Park Extension again this year for our 2009 Field Day activity. The whole purpose of Field Day is primarily threefold. It's, as was read in the proclamation, it is an emergency preparedness drill. We will set up in the Waller Park Extension with radios. We will not use any commercially provided power. We will operate on generators, on batteries, and on solar power for the entire 24-hour period. It's also our big public demonstration event for the year. We do it out in the park, in fields, in parking lots, in our backyards and our front yards for Field Day, so that we're out and publicly visible and people can see what we're doing and they can come up and they can ask us questions, and we can educate people. We can get people that have never seen a ham radio before. We'll sit them down. We'll let them talk on the radio, and we'll encourage them to come out and ask questions and touch the equipment and see it and act on it. And those are the two primary folds. It's also a lot of fun for us as operators to get out there and educate the community and teach them what we're doing and practice our skills and sharpen our skills. And that's the third primary fold, is for us as operators to sharpen our skills and improve our ability to set up quickly, to set up efficiently, safely, and provide services for the public. Now, I'll entertain any questions if anybody has any.
I stopped by last year, enjoyed it. We were they compete to see how many people they can reach. And how did y'all do last year?
We did pretty well, given the size of the club and the number of people in our category of competition that we're competing. I think in terms of score, we do keep track of points for the number of contacts we make with other stations, with other parts of the country, the U.S. and Canada, and other parts of the world. We were in the top 5% nationally. In terms of the number of people that came through our event and thus came to the Waller Park Extension and saw the City of Roswell's facilities, we were number 2 in the nation, all clubs, all organizations, all operating categories, by 4 people. We got beaten by a club in Jacksonville last year by 4 people, and I'm hoping this year we'll improve upon that significantly.
I encourage all the council to stop by so we win this year. Let's have a hand for our ham operators.
Thank you very much. We do invite everybody in the city to come by and partake and enjoy with us.
All right, I've got a proclamation here for you all. Thank you for what you do for the city of Roswell, and good luck with this competition. I hope you come in number 1 this year.
I'd like to have you wear your shirt this year.
When I come?
When you come this year.
This is wonderful.
There you go. Okay. It's not a flag or anything, but big enough for?
I'll be there. No, well, it is big enough for me. It is big enough for me.
Get a picture here.
Well, come on, let's get the whole council down here.
Oh.
Squeeze together.
One, two, three.
It's like the paparazzi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item on the community development agenda is the wireless application at 10930 Crabapple Road, Village Festival, Verticality Roswell LLC, on behalf of T-Mobile Clearwire. This is deferred from the April 13th and May 11th council meetings. Ms. Dial.
Yes, this is the cell tower request at Village Crabapple, and they have requested another deferral to the July 13th hearing because they are looking for several other sites, so they have requested a deferral to July 13th.
Are there any citizens here to be heard on this matter? Any objection to the deferral? We have a motion.
Before I make a motion, I'd like to ask a question, and that's of staff. I had requested that they contact the applicant and see if he'd be willing to either move forward or withdraw by the next meeting so we can make a decision on this and stop deferring it.
Yes, I spoke to the applicant this afternoon, and I've told him your request, and he said yes, that they would have a decision either to come here on July 13th or to withdraw.
Thank you. I move to defer until the July 13th meeting.
Motion deferred by Councilmember DiPolito. Do we have someone else wish to? Do we have a question in the audience? Come forward, please. You'll have to come up and give us your name and address, and then we'll hear from you.
Thank you. Gail Oliver, 450 Junction Track. Just a procedural question. I have no idea. We were concerned, hearing rumors that it was probably going to be moved, and one of the potential sites we had heard about is what we were wondering. Would we see these potential alternate sites before next meeting, or would they be presented at the July meeting?
Can staff answer that question?
The applicant would be required to submit the plans 10 days prior to the council date, which would be July 3rd, which realistically would be the 2nd since we're closed on the 3rd. So we would not get the plans until at that time. That is the last day they can actually submit.
Well, here's my question. If they submit a plan for a new site, does that come up as a separate hearing, or does that tag onto this hearing?
That would be a separate hearing due to the fact that this one has been advertised for this location. So I believe that that would have to go through a whole new process, and we'd have to advertise again.
Do you understand the answer?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have a motion by Councilmember DiPolito for a deferral. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item on the agenda is RZ09-04, a text amendment for allowable vehicle signs. This is the second reading. Ms. Dibble.
Yes, this is the second reading of the vehicle sign ordinance. At the hearing in May, you discussed signage on cars, and there were two main issues regarding the text amendment. The color choices, which indicate just now in the ordinance is allowed to be only white, and also the setback. However, there were no proposed amendments that have been made to this ordinance, so no changes have been made, and it stays as written as the first ordinance.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jackie, I think in the committee meeting I just discussed this with you. We had suggested that the dealers bring in multiple colors for us to look at color chart. Do you have that available, please? And do you know the preference of these? If we decide to pick out 1, 2, 3, or 4 colors, do they tell you preference or priority of the colors that they would like to see?
I believe the preference other than white was a yellow.
Both yellows or just one yellow?
Nothing specific, just the yellow.
So they like to see white and yellow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Do we have a motion? Oh, we need a reading first.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Roswell sign ordinance regarding allowable vehicle signs within the City of Roswell. Now, therefore, pursuant to their authority, the Mayor and Council adopt the following ordinance. Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, section 22.11A6, prohibited signs, ground signs on double frontage lots is amended to read as follows, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Would you summarize what this ordinance would allow?
This would allow display of 8-inch vinyl letters, professionally made, not handmade, on the windshield of vehicles for sale, on the front windshield of the vehicle, within 10 inches of the roof line, not to exceed a total of 320 square inches of area, and currently it's in the non-fluorescent white color only.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve RZ09-04.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Laurie Henry. Any questions, comments? Councilmember Wynn.
Yes, I would like to see if we can add either one of those yellows. I think it's only right that they have two colors. White is just white. I think they need a little bit more oomph. And I would like to see an amendment, if my colleagues agree, to put in one more color.
Are you making a motion to amend to add a yellow?
Yes, sir.
Would you pick one of those yellows?
Turn and get some color.
Yes, sir. I think it was the third one.
The one that says yellow.
Yeah, one says brimstone, one says yellow. The other yellow.
The other yellow. So we have a motion to add the yellow as a permissible color in addition to white. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Tollison. Further discussion on the amendment. Councilman Orleans.
As I said, it's first reading, and I think the Planning Commission said it as well. I think it's over-regulating when we're getting down to saying they can only use white. So at least I see we're adding one more color, but I think we need to give a couple choices of colors, and I'd be willing to go with this particular chart, which is a total of 4 colors plus the white. So, open it up for additional discussion if it's not 4 or 3, whatever, but I'd like to amend the
Would like to add an amendment to add all of these colors?
To add this color chart.
There's a second amendment to add all of the colors. Any discussion on that? Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jackie, again, when you talk to the car dealerships, did they want all five colors, or did they prefer just having white and yellow? That's what I'm trying to find out.
That's from them, right? These are the colors that we received from the dealerships, so I believe this is the preference that they would prefer. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a second to Councilman Orleans' motion? Fails for lack of a second. Any one in the audience wish to speak on the amendment to add yellow and to allow yellow and white? There's an amendment to add yellow and white. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this or any other matter on this motion? Councilman Orleans. We have an amendment to add white, blue, and yellow. Do we have a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
We have a second to that amendment. Any further discussion on that amendment? All right, we're going to vote in these in descending order. All in favor of adding white, yellow, and blue, raise their hands.
I have one question first. Are we talking
first before we vote?
Would each of these be individual colors, or could they mix them all together? So you either have a choice of white, yellow, or blue on the window, or it's going to be some mix?
Good question.
Because once you do that, I think it kind of goes.
Mr. Orleans, how many? What? I guess the question: could you use a choice of 3 colors, or a choice of 2 colors, or a choice of only 1 color?
I would think if we're offering whatever number of colors, 2 or 3 colors, making it available that they can combine them. I mean, have yellow print on blue background. I mean, I don't know how it would work.
So you could have up to 3. You could use all 3 colors.
I mean, we're only talking about
I understand.
a 2x2 strip, and we're not talking about the whole windshield or what has been on the side of the cars in the past. That's for sure.
So your motion is to 3 colors, any combination.
Any combination.
And which 3 colors? White, yellow, and blue.
Correct.
That is the motion before Councilman Eichelhart. Let's see if there's a second before we get into fourth question. Is there a second to that motion? But he clarified it. I want to make sure we've still got a second. Councilman Eichelhart, back to you.
Because I am okay with adding some color because some of them have said they use white was their newest one, and after 30 days changed to yellow, those kind of things. I'm more than happy with that. But I think once you start mix and matching everything, then it really, what's the point? They're going to go crazy, I'm afraid. So if it were just the white or just the yellow or even just the blue, I'd be okay with that. But a mix, I have a problem with.
Other discussion on that amendment? Yes, sir. Councilmember DiPolito.
The question is the amendment for specifically these colors as shown, or is it any yellow, any blue, and any white?
Councilman Orleans, you want to clarify?
Normally when we have a palette that's laid out, these would be the exact colors. Isn't that what staff normally does?
Yes,
So
that
it'd
is
be
correct.
So specifically these colors.
It'd be this, whatever, I can't read that, pale or page blue or whatever, yellow and white. But
The colors shown here.
right.
These three colors. Other questions? Other discussion? Councilman Orleans?
Just in comment to Councilman Eichelhardt's statement or question, whatever. I mean, you're still going to have print on the color, so it could be a white print on a blue, a yellow print on a blue, or blue on the yellow or blue on the white. That's what I meant by combinations. You could have different combinations together, not just one color.
Well, as I understood the motion, for clarification, as I understood the motion, it's any combination of the three. If your Councilman Orleans is saying it's any combination, any two, you need to clarify that, because as I understood it, it was you could use all three colors. Is that correct, Councilman Orleans?
Yes, I mean, I don't see how you
Councilman
use all
Wynn, is
three,
that
but
the way
yes.
you understood it? So it's all three colors, and that's the motion. Yes, sir. All three, and you could have all three on one.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Laurie Henry.
Okay, so you could, I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. You could have a sale sign that the S is
Excuse me, can you turn on your mic?
I'm sorry. So you could have a sign that each letter would be one of the different colors, so you could alternate it.
Yes.
Was that your intention?
I don't think they would do it that way. I would think that'd be getting pretty crazy, and also to print these up, it would increase their printing costs tremendously when you start having different color printed or different letter printed a different color.
Well,
so
the reason why I'm
I don't
asking
see that
is
as a problem, and again, going back to the Planning Commission of being over-regulating here.
Well, this is to get attention of passersby, so people get very creative when they're trying to get someone's attention. So I just wanted, if that's your motion, that's fine.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilman Tollison.
I just want to give it one more shot. I think that best 2 out of 3 would probably be best and would work well. In terms of printing, it doesn't matter how many, the alternating doesn't matter. You have to run it through the press for each color. And I think the concern is for all parties, both the seller and the public, is the loudness of it, the distractiveness of it going down the byways. I think if we had any 2 out of a palette, whether it's just 3 or you added a 4th, whatever, but 2, so you've got a color on a color, I think that would probably be good to start off, and we can always amend it to greater choices later.
Mr. Orleans.
I'm just curious, as Councilman DiPolito, this is his department, and he's been working with staff on this, and hopefully they've been working with some car dealers, and he's been pretty quiet on the subject of colors, so maybe he can comment something down there.
I made a motion for one color.
Councilman Orleans, do you wish to consider?
Just checking.
Councilman Orleans, if you want to get 3 votes, you might want to reconsider your motion.
I'll reconsider the 2 out of 3, if my second will go along with that.
Okay, so Councilman Orleans is now proposing you could 2 out of 3 colors. Councilmember Wynn.
I have no problems with that, sir.
So the motion now is 2 out of 3 colors. Of these, you could pick any 2 of the white, yellow, or pea blue, whatever that is. I can't pronounce it. Pastel blue. Pastel blue. All right, that is the motion. Does everyone understand the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor raise their hands on the motion for the best 2 out of 3. That would be Councilman Orleans, Councilman Tollison, Councilman Becky Wynn, and Councilman Laurie Henry. In favor, all opposed. Councilman DiPolito and Councilman Eichelhardt. Passes 4-2. Next item, please.
That's the amendment, right?
Oh, that's the amendment. All right. Do we have a motion to?
I actually have one additional.
You already had the motion.
Another amendment. Yes, sir.
And I have talked before about the setbacks, because my concern is, frankly, on the north side of Holcomb Bridge, I'm fine with what they want to do, but on the south side, which is where we're trying to do the Midtown Roswell project, we also have quite a few car dealers. And they currently do not use this, numbers and things on the windshields, but once we allow it like this, you can guarantee they will. So I think we will end up actually harming some of the things we're trying to do on that section. So in talking with Mr. Davidson, it is allowable to have a setback from any point, but thought that the best thing to do would be a setback of 15 feet from the edge of the pavement where these displays could begin, so that anything behind that could still have the numbers, but it would basically not allow all the cars that currently right now are right up on the sidewalk, basically in the street almost, on a number of these on the south side of Highway 9, to put it right there on those front cars. So I would like to offer an amendment that says, Mr. Davidson suggested from the edge of pavement, and I'm going to read it here in a second, but at the end of this whole section it says number 6 with the underlined ends, 320 square inches of area in the color of non-fluorescent white, which we just changed, and such display shall not violate the second. And the amendment would be, provided such vehicles are set back a minimum distance of 15 feet from the edge of pavement of the public right-of-way. So that would be right where the asphalt ends, and whatever happens to be there, because it varies. That's why it's somewhat open there. But that would be my amendment.
Just for clarification, this would be the asphalt is maintained by the city versus the parking lot.
Correct. That's, I think, and Mr. Davidson can help, but I think that's why it's the edge of pavement of the public right-of-way.
Might want to just clarify and say street right-of-way.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion to have a setback of 15 feet from the paved street right-of-way. Do we have a second?
Could I get clarification on what we're measuring? It's 15 feet from the back of curb in the right-of-way?
Well, there's curb in some places, it's not in others. So basically, it's wherever the street is, right now, the edge of the public street, 15 feet from that point. Because we talked about a number of things, from the sidewalk, from the right-of-way, whatever, and we don't actually know where the right-of-way is easily in some of those places. So the most consistent area is the edge of the street.
From the public street?
Correct.
I guess my concern is you're not going to accomplish a whole lot, because in a lot of cases you have a 10-foot landscape strip and you may not even be to the edge of curb in 15 feet.
There isn't right now. Once we finish the Midtown project, I guess that could somewhat be true. But right now, some of them are right on the sidewalk, so it's less than 6 feet, really.
Okay.
We have a motion for a 15-foot setback by Councilman Eichelhart. Do we have a question, Councilman Tolleson?
I know where you're going with this, and I would generally agree with it. My question would be, are we sure that folks who already have more than 15 feet distance can't find a way to get closer given this? I don't want to have it have the reverse effect.
Not knowing every single one, but certainly the ones on the north side, they already have an existing parking lot with the whatever distance there, mostly grass or trees, whatever in between. I can't imagine they move forward theoretically they could, but that means they would have to move it forward on some other either new pavement or theoretically. Well, now there's no requirement or restriction at all, so they could do that today, and they haven't done it. So theoretically, I suppose.
This is Councilmember Henry.
I had asked at one point with Code Enforcement and Community Development Department about that very thing, because we have a number of used car dealers that are parking the front tires of their car on the actual landscape strips. So they're jumping their own, and bumpers are hanging over the sidewalk. And I was told that we do not allow that car dealers have to stay within the contained area. Is that really the case? So you can't park, they would have to come in for an amendment to their site plan in order to increase impervious surface, or our code enforcement people would tell them to back their cars up because they have to stay on the asphalt or the concrete.
Other questions? Do we have a motion and a second?
I have a motion. I'm not sure we got a second.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Laurie Henry. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments about this amendment? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of this amendment, raise their hands. That passes unanimously. Any further amendments to this ordinance? What we're voting on right now is the ordinance with two amendments. Those amendments would allow two of the three colors identified and would require a 15-foot setback from the edge of pavement of the public street. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of that motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Are we ready for the next item?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next item is RZ09-06, text amendment to the Roswell zoning ordinance, section 15.2.8 regarding tree pruning. This is for the second reading. Ms. Dybel.
Yes, this is the second reading of the tree pruning ordinance from Article 15.2.8, and three sections regarding this ordinance. In your ordinance related to A, B, and C, A discusses the standards of the tree pruning, B defines topping, and C defines the standards in dealing with the residential lots. There were no changes specifically regarding this ordinance except for to letter C, where there were a few word changes in that section regarding the single-family residential lots.
You want to explain those changes?
We changed a couple of words. Before it stated, excepting for specimen trees, subsection A of the section shall not apply to a single lot which contains or is zoned and platted for purposes of constructing a detached single-family residence or duplex. We changed it to say except for specimen trees, and we changed we changed which to that. And those were all, it was grammatical changes.
Let me see if I understand this. If it's commercially zoned property, then you cannot prune the trees unless you comply with the standards.
Correct.
If it's residentially zoned property, you only have to comply with the standards if it's a specimen tree?
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, would you read the ordinance?
Thank you. This is an ordinance amending the Roswell Zoning Code, section 15.2.8 regarding pruning. Therefore, to accomplish the foregoing, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following ordinance. Existing section 15.2.8 of the Roswell Zoning Code is hereby repealed. A new section 15.2.8 of the Roswell Zoning Code is hereby adopted to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask a question before.
Yes, sir.
I had asked staff to get with the city attorney about the possibility of accepting tree companies from this ordinance. The reason being is that code enforcement's a little uncomfortable with taking out residential entirely, because it's not the individual homeowners that are the problem. It's really the tree companies that come in and do major pruning of large trees that create the issue on residential lots. So they were a little concerned that we might have gotten a little too lenient on the residential side by looking at this, and I didn't know if there was a way to give some leniency to the homeowner who may not know any better, but certainly hold the tree companies accountable who should know the rules.
Certainly there's a way to do it. I'm sure Mr. Davidson could come up with some language.
I attempted to today, and I was unable to because that tree company is usually hired by that homeowner to come out and trim their trees. So,
well, then Mr. Davidson says he's not. Doesn't know how to get. He's not comfortable in doing that.
I wanted to bring that to council's attention. I don't think it's a significant problem, but wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that before we do anything here. So with that being said, not knowing a better solution at this point, I'd recommend approval of RZ09-06, the text amendment regarding tree pruning.
As read with those changes.
Correct.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito to approve the second reading. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Nguyen. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item is RZ09-07, a text amendment regarding changeable copyboard signage. This is the second reading. Ms. Dybel.
Yes, this is the second reading of RZ09-07 regarding Article 22 for changeable copy. This contains several different definitions of changeable copy, electric variable message signs, changeable copyboard signs, and a section regarding LED. There were no changes from the first reading of this ordinance.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
We need a reading of the ordinance first.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Roswell sign ordinance regarding changeable copyboard and changeable electronic variable message signs within the City of Roswell. Now, therefore, pursuant to their authority, the Mayor and Council adopt the following ordinance. Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, Section 22.1, definitions, is amended by adding new definitions to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, Section 22.18C, maximum height, maximum sizes, setback requirements, and number allowances shall be amended to read as follows, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference. Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, Section 22.11A, prohibited signs, ground signs on double frontage lots, is amended to add Section 22.11A21, 22.11A22, and 22.11A23 to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. And Article 22 of the City of Roswell zoning ordinance, signs, Section 22.16, illumination, is amended by adding Section 22.16E and Section 22.16F to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference. And if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Could I have staff summarize what will be allowed and what will not be allowed?
These are indicated to be non-conforming, so they will be allowed, but they are considered non-conforming signs after the adoption of this ordinance.
So that means they're grandfathered in.
Yes.
So they continue, but if the sign was torn down, it couldn't be rebuilt.
Correct. These will be allowed. These are also to be allowed. And also here, allowable signs.
Now, it's my understanding a digital sign is only allowed for certain uses, and what are those?
The LED will only be...
Not LED, but I'm talking about the digital...
Oh, you mean
the gas station
Oh, the timing,
signs
yes. They'll only be allowed to use for time, temperature, and weather. I believe it's weather also.
Okay. Thank you. Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve RZ09-07.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nguyen. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Yes. Councilmember Orleans.
The question again, as we talked at the first reading, the original intent was not to get rid of the reader boards. It was to look at some of the brightness of the new signage coming out, computer signage, and switching frequently. So my question is, with that 100 gathering, came up last time talking about all these businesses. So these Chick-fil-A's and all these signs will not be allowed for a new location in the future. And, I think that's taken it, again, too far in this situation. We were trying to regulate the brightness of the new LEDs and the quick changing of them so that they're not a distraction. But I think we've gone a little too far requiring the 100 people gathering to even allow a reader board to be placed on their sign because especially in churches, several churches, they like to have those reader boards out, and some of them are not going to have 100 members. So I have some problems going along with this text amendment. Thank you.
For the folks in the audience, Mr. Davis, it's my understanding that to have a reader board, which are changeable letters on physical letters on a sign, the ordinance says that you have to have in a place of assembly of 100 people or more.
That's correct.
So if you have a restaurant like Chick-fil-A, I guess do you look at the occupancy or what they average, or how do you figure if it's 100 people or more?
What it says is a regularly scheduled performance or meeting attended by more than 100 persons.
Okay, I've got that. So, further discussion. Does anyone in the audience wish to be heard? Yes, come forward, please.
Hi, Lisa DeCarbo, 130 South Shore Court. On that last item, I just was a little concerned with regularly scheduled performances or meetings for 100 persons or more. How do schools fit into that?
Davidson, could you answer the question?
Schools are exempt from our zoning ordinance.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, come forward, please.
I'm Lou Oliver. My question is, why discriminate based on volume of business or number of people? Anyone?
Does anyone have an explanation?
If I'm a small
Councilmember DiPolito.
businessman, why should I not be able to have the same rights as a Chick-fil-A?
Well, Chick-fil-A that would not have the rights
Chick-fil-A
any
would.
longer, but
No, right.
Mr. DiPolito, do you
Right.
wish to respond?
The thought being that we discussed at committee was to have reader boards for places where they have constant meetings or events where they need to get information out to the public regarding their meetings, such as churches, theaters, and so forth, versus, we've got burgers on sale.
Got it. Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience wish to have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Just a thought based on Councilman Orland's comments. If there are churches that are smaller than 100, is 50 a more reasonable number for that? Because it still ends up doing the same goal, and it doesn't then open the commercial door, I don't believe. Is that correct, Mr. Davidson? If that number is 50 as opposed to 100?
I mean, it would have to be a regularly scheduled meeting, so I don't think a restaurant would qualify under that because it excludes employees. So,
because I can understand that there's smaller churches we don't want to exclude them, but also don't want to open the door that we're trying to keep from opening. So I guess that's a general question to everybody: does 50 work and still accomplish that, and allow some more freedom for smaller groups?
Have we gotten a motion yet?
I haven't, but I guess that was a question for everyone, and I can make a motion to amend that from 100 to 50.
You're making a suggestion.
Or seeing what everybody thinks about that, but that I would then go ahead to maybe help that discussion and make a motion to amend that from 100 to 50.
Technically, I can't have an amendment until I have a motion.
Suggestion to the motion.
Still a suggestion.
Councilman Tollison.
I would agree with.
We already have a motion. I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. You're proposing an amendment.
It was last week, but yes. So now we got an amendment again.
We have an amendment to change the number to 50. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Tollison. Further discussion on the amendment. Councilman Laurie Henry.
I hate to throw this one out, but there is a church in my neighborhood that is surrounded by residential. It's a very small church, but I would venture to say they have 50 people on Sundays. So this little chapel on Prospect could have an LED changeable message board.
No, nobody can have a changeable LED.
So this is for a reader board.
Okay, so it would just be the stationary reader board.
Correct.
That they already have.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions, discussion? We have a motion and a second to revise the number to 50. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That passes unanimously. All in favor of the motion as amended? And then let's go through the amendments. What amendments were there? Just the one. All right. Motion as amended. All in favor of the motion as amended, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. That's the second reading. That ordinance now becomes law.
The next item on the agenda is a no net loss of trees policy. Ms. Dybel.
Yes, this is a resolution for no net loss of trees. The resolution will establish tree cover on public lands to maintain trees in healthy and non-hazardous conditions and to promote efficient and cost-effective management of the urban forest. Basically, the no net loss of tree policy means it's for city public lands, and if the city had some land where they were going to develop property and there were 30 units per acre of trees, and we removed 15 of those 30, we would have to replace 15 units of trees in another location on city public property.
Any questions about the resolution? Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito for approval. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhart. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We'll now have a report from our city attorney.
Thank you. This again is the consideration of the mayor's veto. Need another motion to defer to June 29th, I guess.
Do we have a motion to defer consideration of the veto?
Move to defer consideration of the veto until June 29th.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. We have a work session in room 220 to talk about master planning and a charrette for the property east of City Hall here.